teachers and dear students. So this is a application of physics on the respiratory system. This is part one. There are 10 or 12 physics laws of physics that we can corroborate with the respiratory system. So part one will take 30 to 40 minutes, and next another 2 weeks after I can do the part two. So start with the chest wall. So content of today's discussions are these laws of lever, Archimedes laws of lever in our chest wall expansion. Then I will discuss the paradoxical respiration in brief. Then Dalton's law of gases, specifically in the alveolus, and Bernoulli's equation in the upper obstruction. Then I'll summarize the peculiarities of Petit's law and RDS in detail. Then Boyle's law and our breathing. So next I'll discuss the chemistry and physiology on respiratory system. So coming to the chest wall, there is some peculiarity of our chest wall, and God is the big engineer. He has engineered our chest wall in such a way that each rib is regarded as a lever, the fulcrum of which is attached to the tubercle of the vertebral body. So let me take the pointer. There's a pointer here. So this is the tubercle of the vertebral body, and the rib is attached to the tubercle in the posterior part. And slight movement of the vertebral end of the rib are greatly magnified at the anterior end. This is a peculiarity. And the anterior end of the rib is lower than the posterior end. During elevation of the rib, anterior end moves forward. This occurs mostly in the vertebrosternal ribs. So we have got two kinds of ribs. One is vertebrosternal rib up to this, and one is your vertebrochondral rib up to this. From this to this are around 6 to 11 are vertebrochondral ribs, and from 1 to 6 are vertebrosternal. So chondral complex, we should say. So there are two kinds of movements. One is pump handle movement, like pump of the tube oil. So this is called pump handle movement, and another is called bucket handle movement. I will explain in the next slide. So middle of the shaft of the rib lies at the lower level, then the plane passing through two ends. This causes increase in the transverse diameter of the thorax. Such movements occur in vertebrochondral ribs. That is called bucket handle movement. So these ribs from this 6 downward, they participate in bucket handle movement. So thorax resembles a cone. As a result, each rib is longer than rib. On inspiration, larger lower rib comes to occupy the position of the smaller upper rib. So next you will get the explanation. So this is the Archimedes laws of lever, where force applied, minimal force due to contraction of the muscles of the back is magnified to the anterior end at a maximum dimension. So this is the fulcrum, this is the tubercle, or this is the tubercle of the vertebra, and this is the fulcrum. So this is the fulcrum, and this is the short arm, and this is the long arm. From here to here, long arm. So we know that a minimal force will be multiplied times length into the force. So the maximum advantage on the anterior end, and thereby our bucket handle movement takes place. So this applies to both bucket handle as well as your pump handle movement. So another important thing is that angle. The God has also created God has also created an angle over here, and this angle I will describe. If that particular man is successful in lifting the tire, so if angle is such, then if this is the angle, for example, here 30 degree, and if this angle is increased to 45 degree, if this angle increased to 45 degree or 60 degree, the lever effect will be more. So it is not only the distance, it is also the angle. So both angle and distance are very much peculiar to this the rib structure created by God. So here the application of physics is that laws of lever described by Archimedes 300 years back to the birth of Christ. So he has correctly described that your force is equal to distance into the load. So load applied here by the posterior or force applied here by the muscles of the back multiplies many times here, multiplies many times at this point. So this is called mechanical advantage of the lever. Next is, this is absolutely a schematic diagram. This is the resting position, and after the bucket handle movement, there is expansion of the thorax like this. And here is the your pump handle movement. Sternum is acting like a pump, so there is expansion in this direction. So another important thing that every pediatrician should know, that our adult thorax is elliptical, and pediatric thorax, especially infants and up to the age of 5 years, it is circular. It is circular. So this whole bucket handle advantage and your pump handle advantage are less in circular shaped thorax, and is much more in elliptical shaped thorax. Next, so simultaneously I will point out the peculiarities of infantile respiratory system. So chest wall in infant is highly compliant and circular. I will show a few pictures of the compliance chest wall. And young infants spend large amount of time in REM sleep. So as they spend large amount of time in REM sleep, so only diaphragm works. The intercostal muscles are inhibited or hypotonic or paralyzed. So any airway obstruction in the premature babies due to the compliant chest wall is sucked in paradoxically. I'll describe the paradoxical respiration in subsequent slide. So there is no other way that if there is minimal amount of hypoxia in a case of pneumonia or bronchiolitis, then this advantage of your bucket handle and pump handle movement is very much minimal in circular chest wall, and they get easily fatigued. They get easily fatigued. Your muscles are working but not giving maximum ventilation. Next is peculiarity of the diaphragm. See, infantile diaphragm is almost horizontal. There is very minimal excursion. And adult diaphragm, there is oblique in attachment. See, oblique in attachment. So maximum excursion per respiratory cycle. So this is also an important limitation. Next is, there are some more limitation with respect to diaphragm. Polyneuronal innervation of diaphragm in adult as compared to the children. So in adult, one muscle of the diaphragm is innervated by multiple nerve endings. But in pediatric age group, the nerve endings per muscle fiber is much less. So they are more fatigue prone. Adult diaphragm is rich in mitochondria. So more mitochondria, more power, more energy. Then quantity of acetylcholine per end plate is less in infant. So more chance of neuromuscular transmission failure. So there are limitations in infancy, especially less than 5 years. And sarcoplasmic reticulum, which is considered as a immediate trigger of power, is less in premature diaphragm or is less in infancy or up to 5 years. Next is, infants has a higher oxygen consumption rate with respect to per unit body weight as compared to adults. So this is another limitation. And short respiratory pause in apnea can be a dangerous consequence, can have a dangerous consequence. So coming to the seesaw respiration. So seesaw respiration can be of two types, one due to this kind of compliant chest wall and one due to paralysis of the diaphragm. So there are two kinds of seesaw respiration. my dear students, please concentrate on this picture. This is a 650 gram baby at 26 weeks of gestation, and see, when the baby breathes in, normally the anterior chest wall should move up and abdomen should move up. So here what happens, due to atmospheric pressure, the anterior part of the chest wall goes down, and abdomen goes up because diaphragm is working. Diaphragm goes down and abdomen goes up. This is called thoracic paradox. Let me repeat once. So when the baby breathes in, the chest wall should come out. But paradox is, due to poor mineralization, due to poor muscle strength, due to prematurity, your anterior chest wall is flail, and when the baby breathes in, it should come out, but paradoxically it goes in. So chest wall goes in this direction and abdominal wall goes up this direction. So this is called seesaw respiration or a paradoxical respiration. This is called thoracic paradox. Now this is a child with neuromuscular disability, where due to prolonged immobilization, the anterior chest wall is demineralized. There is poor muscle tone, there is poor muscle activity, and due to breaths in, the anterior chest wall goes in. So this is another paradox in a older child. Now coming to the diaphragmatic paradox. So diaphragm, when it's paralyzed, it becomes a inert membrane. So in normal respiration, when the baby breathes in, the chest wall should expand, abdomen should expand. So paradox here is, as because your diaphragm is an inert membrane, when the baby breathes in, the abdominal viscera pushes the diaphragm in, as because intrathoracic pressure is negative. So diaphragm will move like this, and abdominal wall will be down like this, and thorax will be up like this. So this is called your paradoxical respiration abdominal. Here diaphragmatic palsy, though it is very rare, but for discussion purpose, paradox can be two. One is abdominal and one is thoracic. Now, can anyone tell me the diagnosis here? So alert look. So it cannot be a cerebral palsy. It is SMA diagonal chest wall. This is a cerebral palsy. This child admitted in our unit not less than 5 times with extreme disability, grade 5 disability, and absolute deformity of the anterior chest wall. Anterior, lateral, all part of chest wall is deformed. And just see that your distance, this chest wall goes down, and there is little movement of the abdomen. So this is a paradox, thoracic paradox in a case of CP child, and earlier thoracic paradox in a case of SMA. So this is another application of your physics. The Charles Dalton, way back in 1802, described that displacement takes place among gases. With respect to volume and partial pressure. So my question to the student is, in the air, the oxygen is 21%. So 21% of 760 is your 159 or 160. And when it goes to alveolar level, it is 104. Can anyone explain me how oxygen is reduced, partial pressure of oxygen reduced to approximately 50 to 60? So answer is addition of water vapor due to our sinus, our paranasal sinus gives moisture to the system, and due to the addition of water vapor, partial pressure is 47, and carbon dioxide is added. So water vapor from the top and carbon dioxide from the down below, at the alveolar level, there are lots of internal rearrangement, and this is explained by Charles Dalton in 1800. He has explained that partial pressure, if in a normal situation where temperature is normal, is a 37 degree, then your 21% oxygen, 78% nitrogen, and your argon gas 0.9% gives rise to 1 atmosphere barometric pressure. So they have their internal rearrangement of pressure and volume. The same thing happens in our alveolus, that you're on the top, from the top we are getting moisture, so little bit of oxygen is displaced, little bit of nitrogen is displaced, and resultant pressure here, it is 1 barometric pressure or 760 millimeter of mercury. And carbon dioxide is added from the bottom and moisture is added from the top. So this is the explanation here why 160 oxygen, partial pressure of oxygen reduced to 104. So let me now touch the Bernoulli's equation. So Daniel Bernoulli, a great mathematician of Germany, he first described that if a high flow jet air is allowed to pass under the wing of aircraft, then what happens? There is a negative pressure, and it leaves the 1,000-ton aircraft. So this is the Bernoulli's equation, and this happens in our larynx. So how? This is the original experiment. This is the original experiment of Bernoulli. So let me see. So what he did, he took a equal pipe of equal diameter from this point to this point, and he blows air with a pressure, and he sees there is no change. But if the pipe is constricted at the middle, if, for example, if 4 centimeter diameter is reduced to 2 centimeter, and from the middle of this place one pipe or glass tube is attached, and this is nothing but oil of like mustard oil or any dense oil. So he has seen that if air is blown from this point to this point, then the oil goes up, because there is negative pressure generated at around this place, and oil goes up. So this is the Bernoulli's original experiment, and due to this experiment, your 1,000-ton aircraft is lifted. So when this engine works, then there will be high velocity flow of air across the wings, and it causes a negative pressure, and it causes a lift. The same thing happens in our larynx. So 4-lane road becomes 2-lane, and traffic is passing at a high speed. So what happens in our larynx? Due to acute laryngotic bronchitis, if laryngeal mucosa is edematous and it has reduced the internal diameter, then our body's demand is same. Our body, these intercostal muscles and diaphragm is sucking the air with the same speed, but the road is constricted, the road is narrowed. 4-lane road has reduced to 2-lane. So air molecule are passing at a high speed, negative pressure generated, and there is mucosal prolapse. Here, there is mucosal prolapse. So oxygen requirement is constant. To meet same supply, muscle breaks with more power or force. Particle moves across the larynx at a high speed, so lateral wall mucosa collapse, and vicious cycle goes on. So this is a little bit elaborated. So this is the healthy larynx. Here, in case of acute laryngotic bronchitis or any obstruction in the upper airway or foreign body, when there is aperture is reduced, then negative pressure created, and there is mucosal prolapse. So if 1 millimeter reduction in diameter, then 60 times surface area is reduced, and your resistance increase 16 times, 60 and 16. So So this happens in our larynx, and this is the application of Bernoulli's equation in case of acute laryngeal bronchitis group or any upper airway obstruction, maybe foreign body. So it's the same thing. Next is your laryngomalacia, where his larynx is so soft and pliable that it carves and folded during inspiration, and there are lots of turbulence and there is noise here. So this is the explanation in bit. Then your in laryngomalacia, for all junior staff, that during expiration our larynx, our vocal cord and larynx, they wide apart. So we do not get in mild and moderate group, we do not get any noise in expiration, because they are wide apart in expiration, but in inspiration they come closer, and if there is any pliable or soft tissue, as in laryngomalacia, they collapses. So during expiration, glottis is patent and no abnormal sound is heard, and during inspiration, the epiglottis and aerator collapses and compromise the glottic opening. So here I would like to give a message that if any upper airway obstruction or any inspiratory stridor is audible, to diagnose this as a laryngomalacia, you have to go to a direct visual inspection of the larynx by laryngoscope. It can be a foreign body, it can be a mucus plug, it can be a web, it can be a membrane, it can be stenosis. So what is there actually? It is very much a domain of pediatrician. You can do a laryngoscope and see what is there. So simple listening with stethoscope is not final. Next, this is another situation we get off and on in NICU when a baby ventilated for more than 15 days, then there may be a chance of subglottic stenosis. Now, let us highlight the salient peculiarity of infantile larynx versus adult larynx. So, this is the picture of infantile larynx. Infantile larynx is funnel shaped. See, this is a funnel shaped structure, and this part, this is a cricoid cartilage. This part is most constricted, and this is your vocal cord. So it is not at the level of vocal cord, it is below the level of vocal cord. So subglottic area is the most constricted part. And one more peculiarity is, so this part is surrounded through and through by cartilage. So there is no scope, not a 0.1 millimeter space, because it is cartilage, it is fixed structure. And in adult, gradually the shape changes, funnel to a barrel. So in adult, there are sufficient is enlarged with respect to body proportion, but here it is constant with respect to body proportion. So more amount of turbulence, more chance of obstruction with minimal mucosal edema. So this is one peculiarity. And another is, so here in infants, see there is a physiological occipital prominence. So the neck, cannot be completely extended. So there is some flexion, and this area is overpopulated with lots of things, large tongue, the tonsillar tissue. So everything causes a overpopulation here. On the top, your base of the brain, floor of the sphenoid is oblique. So less room in this space. So collectively, the structural situation plus soft tissue situation plus unusual flexion all gives rise to less amount of space in this oropharynx and to some extent nasopharynx. So prominent occiput with respect to shoulder blade, more neck flexion, less oropharyngeal space, and enlarged tonsillar tissue. These are the limitation of pediatric pharynx as well as larynx. So cricoid cartilage is a complete ring. Cricoid cartilage is a complete ring as opposed to the trachea, where posterior membrane allows for expansion of the lumen little bit. narrowest portion in the infant airway is inferior cricoid ring. Normal slug-glottic area in a term infant it is 4 to 7 millimeter, and in preterm infant is 3.5 to 4.5 millimeter. So 1 millimeter circumferential reduction of diameter, this already I have told, and this I will explain in next class. This is the turbulent flow, this Pasolini's equation, Pasolini's index, and this is the Reynolds phenomena, Reynolds number. This I will explain in next class. Next is your etiology. Is the most common etiology is secondary to endotracheal intubation, recurrent intubation, or prematurity trauma, and this infection comes in NICU babies. Infection comes less. The endotracheal intubation and intubation trauma and the extubation stenosis comes first. So there are many classifications, but Mayer and Cotton classification is acceptable. So grade 1 is up to 50% obstruction, grade 2 is 50 to 70%, grade 3 is 70 to 99% obstruction. So clinical feature, see, in subglottic stenosis is so small area, so it sometimes causes biphasic stridor with or without respiratory distress is most common presentation. So biphasic stridor is very important point to be noted, and there is Brasky or Barkey cough, hoarseness, weak cry, fatigue with feeding, recurrent prolonged probably any child, particularly those present less than 6 months with a history of prolonged intubation. So history of prolonged intubation is very important, and all baby maybe in OPD in follow-up 1 month or 2 months, any noise, if you put your stethoscope, if you find that there is mild biphasic inspiration, expiration, there is noise, so just ask that are there any history of NICU admission. Next is differential diagnosis. That's why I have told that take a laryngoscope and visualize on your own. It can be hemangioma. It can be your vocal cord immobility. So many things. So you have to do a laryngoscope and see what is there. Next is there's one important radiological sign. In case of croup, we call it stipple sign. Due to the edema is so much so that only a string, just a string of shadow, just is thread like. So this is called stipple sign of croup. It is something like described as it is the tip of a church. And normally, if you take an X-ray of a normal baby, or if you take an X-ray of me, you will find that the air column is definitely constricted at the level of vocal cord, and it creates a masjid sign, a dome shaped, is a dome shaped. But here, dome changes to a cone. Dome changes to a cone. So this is your masjid sign, and earlier it was a church sign. Now coming to the RDS. Now coming to the RDS. So here the great experiment of Simon Laplace. Here he took 2 large balloons. This is the original experiment. 2 large balloons, and he connected with a straw, and he squeezes the finger, gradually release the finger, and it has been seen that small balloon to large balloon, which is already large, is further large by the push of air from small balloon to the large balloon. And this, he explained that pressure is more in the small balloon. Why? He explained that pressure is 2T by radius. So if T is tension in our human body, this T is given by surfactant as well as the biological tissue. So here it is plastic tissue. So pressure is going to 2T by radius. So for discussion's sake, if radius is 1 in yellow and radius is 3 in blue, then pressure in small is 2T by R, it is 6 units. And pressure in large is 2 units. So from higher pressure to lower pressure, it goes. So this is the application of Laplace law, and as a result, what happens? the smaller alveoli has a tendency to collapse. So as because pressure is more in the smaller alveoli, there is a tendency to collapse. So when the baby is born, maybe 30 week, 32 week, 34 week, so less than 34 weeks or less than 33 weeks, there is high chance of, not universal, but high chance of your less surfactant in the surface. So immediately you have to put a CPAP. Immediately you have to put a CPAP. So I will explain what is the function of CPAP in subsequent slide. So this is classical pressure volume curve of normal lung. So up to a certain extent, so the same thing elaborated here, up to a certain extent, your alveoli are collapsed. These alveolus are collapsed, and there is very little volume expansion. So after we achieve this point, maybe beyond 4-5, this area there is optimal distension of the system of the alveoli, and this area is high FRC or your zone of barotrauma. Alveoli are over distended because this zone is high pressure and high volume zone. So curve is S-shaped. After this point, after approximately this point, in spite of increasing pressure, there will be no increase in the volume. Volume is stable. Volume is stable here. In spite of increasing pressure, there will be no increase in the volume. And if you go on increase the pressure, there will be rupture. There will be barotrauma at this point. Chance of barotrauma increases from this point. So this pressure will give you the recruitment of alveoli. The alveoli will get a PWP, and there is little expansion. And when these are expanded, the work of breathing reduced. That is why we need to attach CPAP immediately in a respiratory distress baby. We do Silverman's code, and if it is less than 3, we will less than equal to 3, immediate urgent CPAP. So there, if a ventilator setting of a newborn, premature newborn of 30 weeks is set with high PWP is very high, there is high chance of rupture, barotrauma, and with the background of low surfactant, with the background of prematurity, there is high chance of barotrauma. And if there is barotrauma, free oxygen radical will come out, and it will disrupt the biological membrane. It will disrupt the DNA damage and repair, and it will cause lots of hyaline membrane disease and chronic lung disease. So this is your Silverman score. So this is your symmetric or synchronized chest movement as well as abdominal movement. With each act of respiration, your chest wall goes up, your abdominal wall goes up. But here there is leg on inspiration, and here there is seesaw. I have explained that the chest wall goes in and abdominal wall goes up. So here, if you apply CPAP, immediately you will find after half an hour you will find that the grade 2 will be shifted to grade 1. Grade 2 will be shifted to grade 1. If the intercostal suctions are marked in the posterior part of the chest, this is called posterior, this is called anterior, or this is called lower chest, this is lower chest, and this is upper chest. So immediately you will find that these retractions will be much less. So grade 2 will be converted to grade 1. So this is how your work of breathing will be less if you give we call it splinting. If you give immediate CPAP or positive pressure, the collapsing alveoli will be distended and your work done will be less. So this is the application of Boyle's law. This is the application of 10 minutes, 9:20 I will finish. So this is the application of Boyle's law. This is Robert Boyle of Ireland, 1660. He described that when the pressure increases, this is a pressure gauge, when the pressure increases, the volume reduced. Volume increases, pressure reduced. So we breathe on Boyle's law. Just see how. So during inspiration, your intrathoracic pressure is -40. So gases from atmosphere goes in. So volume increases and pressure is low. So pressure volume, there is opposite relation. Here expiration, pressure increases due to the lung recoil as well as chest recoil. So pressure increases and volume is less. So there is opposite action. So we breathe on Boyle's law. So there is interesting application of Boyle's law. So if a diver goes from this point to 2 atmospheric pressure down, then your lung volume collapses. So if the diver has no modern apparatus of continuous pressure, then the lung collapses. There may be hemorrhage. So what happens in deep sea? The gas molecules which in the air are far apart, they come closer, and gaseous state is changed into liquid state. It happens in case of nitrogen. So nitrogen in liquid stage attaches to different structures. It is absorbed into tissue, especially fatty tissue, bone, and cartilage. So if a diver ascends rapidly, then what happens? This liquid nitrogen converted into gaseous form, and gas is there inside the blood vessel, and it can block the minor or small capillaries in the brain, can cause stroke. So this is called decompression sickness. So rapid ascent is contraindicated in case of divers. So this is the application of Boyle's law. And if the diver suffers from asthma, then gas embolism can happen, because liquid nitrogen converted to gas has to be expelled from the lung, but due to constriction of the airway, it cannot. So there will be gas embolism, there will be pneumothorax, pneumomediastinum, and death. So with this background, this is the picture of Nelson, and many students complain me that, sir, this is very difficult. So just concentrate that this is expiration. So during expiration, in intrathoracic pressure is positive. So plus 40 centimeter of water. So positive. And when this positive pressure comes here, there is the physiological constriction in the upper airway, and there is relative dilatation. There is relative dilatation of the subglottic structures, So all upper airway obstruction are relieved during expiration. Maybe foreign body, maybe inflammation, maybe infection, so relieved little bit during expiration. And here what happens during inspiration, negative intrathoracic pressure, so air goes in, and due to atmospheric pressure, this inside the trachea it is negative, atmospheric is positive, it gives a compression, because there is no bony wall in our neck to sustain this pressure. So it gives a small contraction of the volume and as well as size. So thereby during inspiration, all upper airway obstruction are exaggerated, and they present with a noise called stridor. So now concentrate on this table and this baby. So what happens in your OPD ticket or in your emergency, I have seen respiratory distress. But if you look very carefully, you can detect respiratory distress of parenchymal origin or respiratory distress of upper airway origin. So if tachypnea, in case of upper airway obstruction, tachypnea will be very minimal. The retraction and stridor will be more, and plus minus you may get wheeze, you may get grunting. So a upper airway obstruction will be maximum in case of inspiration and minimum in case of expiration. And as because there is no parenchymal involvement, parenchyma is fine, there will be minimal tachypnea. Minimal tachypnea, body will try to release the obstruction, so there will be more retractions. So this is the message, that look carefully, that is my baby has disproportionate tachypnea as well as retractions, or tachypnea retractions are proportionate. In case of pneumonia, you will find tachypnea and retractions are proportionate. You will get, in case of pneumonia, you will get 4+ here. All are plus. All are plus. You will get 4+ here, 4+, especially in case of bronchopneumonia. Then the same thing, upper versus lower. So in case of asthma or lower airway obstruction, or in case of a pneumonia, just now I have described that there will be more tachypnea. Here tachypnea will be less. So upper versus lower, we can differentiate by respiratory rate and disproportionate retraction. So I think I am within the time. If you like my talk, I'll give my part 2.
It was very informative, Joydeep. আমি খুব সহজ করে একটা জিনিস বলি, if it is a suprasternal obstruction, যেটা খুব মাইল্ড হয়, সেটা suprasternal suctionটা বেশি থাকে, intercostal suctionটা কম থাকে। আর যত বেশি নিচে,
another point, yes sir, it is there, এটা লেখা আছে। হ্যাঁ,
তুই লাভ প্লাস এইসব কি বললি, মাথাটা একটু ঘুরে গেল।
আরো আছে,
আমি to make the very simple, inherent tendency of the lung is to collapse, and inherent tendency of the chest wall is to expand. The balancing force between these two keeps the lung expanded, and that's reflected by functional residual volume. কথাটা বুঝলি? inherent tendency of the lungs to collapse, inherent tendency of the chest wall to expand, এই দুটোর ব্যালেন্সটাই
balance is residual volume,
functional residual volume। আচ্ছা, এখন মানে এই যে inherent tendency of the lungs to collapse, সেটাকে ব্যালেন্স করে
তার মধ্যে একটা ডিজিজ চলে আসলেই ওটাকে বলবে ক্লোজিং ভলিউম।
হ্যাঁ,
একটু উপরে এফআরসির একটু উপরে হবে ক্লোজিং ভলিউম।
ইয়েস। তো এই যে লাং কমপ্লায়েন্স, মানে হাউ ইজিলি ইউ ক্যান মানে কিপ দ্য লাংস এক্সপ্যান্ডেড। তোর এই রেসপিরেটরি ডিস্ট্রেস সিনড্রোম, তারপরে প্রিম্যাচুরিটিতে তোর এই এটা কম, লাংস কমপ্লায়েন্সটা কমে যায়। আরেকটা হচ্ছে যে রেজিস্ট্যান্স, এই দুটো আলটিমেটলি করে। আর তুই অনেক লটা বললি রেজিস্ট্যান্স অফ দ্য এয়ারওয়ে, যেটা 1/4 রেডিয়াসে যেটা হয়, ছোট ব্লক হলে অনেক বড় ব্লক। সবাইকে একটা শুধু আমাদের ভালো করে কালকে বলবি নেক্সট পার্টে, সুপ্রাগ্লটিক, গ্লটিক এন্ড সাবগ্লটিক, এই তিনটে মেইন অবস্ট্রাকশন। ঠিক আছে, আচ্ছা গ্লটিক এন্ড
ছবি দিয়ে বলবো।
হাউ ক্যান উই ডিস্টিংগুইশ বিটুইন দিস থ্রি?
আচ্ছা, নয়েজ গুলো বলবো, নয়েজ গুলো।
यस, মানে ওটা করে রেসপিরেটরি সাউন্ডস।
প্যারাডক্সিক্যাল রেসপিরেশন আর সিসর রেসপিরেশন দুটো কি এক?
না না, ওর তো ঠিক বলেছে জয়দীপ, বলেছে দুটো প্যারাডক্স। একটা প্যারাডক্স ডায়াফ্রাম মানে অ্যাবডোমেনে হবে, একটা প্যারাডক্স চেস্টে হবে। যদি আমরা ইন্সপিরেশনে চেস্টও ফুলবে, অ্যাবডোমেনে ফুলবে। যদি ইন্সপিরেশনে অ্যাবডোমেন ঢুকে যায় তাহলে এটা হচ্ছে অ্যাবডোমিনাল প্যারাডক্স, আর ইন্সপিরেশনে
কথাটা একই, কথাটা একই হলো,
প্যারাডক্স
একই হলো, কথাটা একই হলো।
ভালো, খুব ভালো, কিন্তু একটু খুব কঠিন মনে হলো একটু আর কি।
তো তুই এত খাটলি কেন এটার পিছনে?
সেই
না স্যার, অ্যাকচুয়ালি যেটা হচ্ছে, যে কোনো ভালো ইনস্টিটিউশনে if you learn about ventilation, you need to learn respiratory physiology for 7 days.
হ্যাঁ ঠিক কথা।
Respiratory physiology for 7 classes before learning the basics of the ventilation. Any basic
Yes,
ventilation
yes.
course preceded by the respiratory physiology for 7 days.
প্রভাস নেক্সট ক্লাসে থাকিস, অনেকটা ভেন্টিলেশন আছে,
Until and unless you know
তুই আমাকে
respiratory
কাট করে
physiology
দিবি।
very well, you'll not be able to modulate your ventilatory settings and everything.
Right.
And I think that আমাদের এই বেসিক জিনিসগুলো অ্যাকচুয়ালি should be
কম
strengthened.
ডিসকাশন হয়, কম ডিসকাশন হয়।
Strengthened, কম ডিসকাশন হয়, should be strengthened in undergraduates. আন্ডারগ্রাজুয়েটে যদি কিছু পড়ানো হয় না এখন, তো আমাদের মনে হয় বেসিক জিনিসগুলো we should strengthen, giving strength. Otherwise, discussing mutations, hi-fi things, syndromes, basic things we need to stress upon.
সবই লাগবে, ওইটাও লাগবে।
But basic,
ultimately patient wants a diagnosis also.
Yes.
Patient wants a diagnosis, patient wants a treatment.
Treatment, you should improve. Ultimately, the end of the thing, the patient আর কষ্ট নিয়ে
এটা
লাঘব করতে হবে। তুমি যা
খুবই ভালো,
করো না কেন।
এটা খুবই ভালো, প্রচুর খেটেছেও, প্রচুর পড়াশোনা করেছে,
ফিজিক্স তো পড়ে নিয়েছে পুরো। হ্যাঁ,
হ্যাঁ,
লাপ্লাস, বার্নৌলি,
এর বইটা এত ভালো না, পড়তে ইচ্ছা করে, বারবার পড়তে ইচ্ছা করে ওটা।
বাবা,
আপের বইটা
না ওই যে আইপি
আমেরিকান একাডেমি অফ পেডিয়াট্রিক্স,
এপি নীল বইটা রেসপিরেটরি,
নীল। একটা লাল বই আছে স্যার, একটা লাল বই আছে,
রেড বুক আছে একটা।
না ওই রেসপিরেটরি একটা লাল বই আছে, তার বাইরে অনেক ছবি দেওয়া আছে, আপের 1000 পাতা, 1000 পাতার বই।
এরপরে যদি কার্ডিওপালমোনারি ইন্টারঅ্যাকশন পড়াই, মানে একটা ভেন্টিলেশন দিলে কার্ডিওপালমোনারি ইন্টারঅ্যাকশন কি চেঞ্জ হয়, হার্ট ফেলিওরে কেন ইমপ্রুভ করে, হার্ট লাগার সময় সেটা তো আরো কঠিন।
ফিজিওলজি, হ্যাঁ ফিজিওলজি।
এখানে ল্যাপ্লাস ল, দুটো টিউব পাশাপাশি আছে, থোরাক্স একটা টিউব আর হচ্ছে অ্যাওর্টা একটা টিউব, তার মধ্যে প্রেসার ডিফারেন্স, কেন পজিটিভ প্রেসার ভেন্টিলেশন দিলে পেশেন্ট ইমপ্রুভ করে, হোয়াট ইজ দ্য ইম্পর্টেন্স অফ গিভিং পজিটিভ প্রেসার ভেন্টিলেশন, সেটা তো আরো ডিফিকাল্ট। তো এটা থেকে আমার মনে হচ্ছে যে আই শুড টেক আ ক্লাস অন রেসপিরেটরি ফিজিওলজি অন অ্যাসপেক্ট অফ মেকানিক্যাল ভেন্টিলেশন।
ঠিক আছে, এটার পরে একদিন করিস, একটু ছোট করে,
15 দিন সময় লাগবে, নেক্সট করতে 15 দিন সময় লাগবে,
মাথাটা মোমো করে ঘুরিয়ে যায়।
এটা বেসিক
কিন্তু ভীষণ কমপ্লিকেটেড।
হ্যাঁ, আমাদের অত তো বুঝতে পারলাম, তুই যে কথা, তুই এই সবই একটু একটু জানি। এই যে তুই ডাইভিংটা বললি, নাইট্রোজেন বুড়বুড় করে বাবল কেটে বেরিয়ে আছে, এয়ার এম্বলিজম হয়ে যাবে, কিন্তু সবই ভাষা জানা, কোনোটা ইনডেপথ জানা না।
Simple, one could simple about this nitrogen and oxygen, about the simple thing that in a broncholytic illness, the main illness in the small airways, okay? So there is minimal role of bronchodilators because the small airways are devoid of smooth muscles. So in broncholytic illness, there is a collection of the water or secretion in the small airways. So there is a chances of the small airways to collapse. So whatever is it, that the balance of the nitrogen and oxygen in the small airways keep the pressure intact, and this nitrogen prevents the absorption atelectasis of the small airways. So in broncholytic illness, until and unless your saturation is less than 90%, you should not give any other oxygen supplementation, even if the patient is under respiratory distress. If you put more oxygen, so what will happen? Your saturation may rise from 90 to 100, but this oxygen will replace the nitrogen inside this small alveoli. So as nitrogen will be replaced, oxygen will be replaced by the nitrogen inside the small alveoli, the tendency of collapse of the small alveoli increase further. So the pathological process of this broncholytic illness will be deteriorate further. So that lies the importance of judicious use of oxygen. So until and unless you know the physiology, you will not be able to. আমাদের একটা টেন্ডেন্সি হলো একটু কিছু হচ্ছে তাহলে দিবি 4 লিটার। তো দ্যাট আমি জানবো পিআইসিইউ তে প্রতিটা পেশেন্টের অক্সিজেন মিটারের পাশে আমি একটা বড় করে পোস্টার লাগিয়ে দিই, ডোন্ট গিভ মোর দ্যান 0.5, ডোন্ট গিভ মোর দ্যান 0.1।
ক্রস ব্রঙ্কিওলাইটিসে হাইপারটনিক স্যালাইনটা কিরকম করে কাজ করে?
এখন যেটা মেইনলি বলছিল যে অ্যাজ ইট ইজ
করে না
এখন রিসেন্ট যে আর্টিকেলস গুলো পাবলিশ হচ্ছে লাস্ট 1 ইয়ার, তারা বলছে there is no difference in outcome or symptoms relief if you give hypertonic saline. আচ্ছা, প্রিভিয়াসলি কিন্তু বলছিল তার আগে যে স্টাডি হচ্ছে বলছে ইমপ্রুভ করে। মেন হচ্ছে যে
আমরা তো দিই
না আমরা দেই, আমি তো কোনোদিনই মানে ফর লাস্ট 1 ইয়ার কেন প্রভাস বলছি, ফর লাস্ট 2-3 ইয়ার্সই হাইপারটনিক স্যালাইন
2 ইয়ার্স ধরে অতটা ট্রেন্ড নেই, তার আগে দিতে বলতো।
না হাইপারটনিক স্যালাইন, স্যালবুটামল, তারপরে তোর ওই অ্যান্টিকোলিনার্জিক ওই সবইতে যেটাতে কাজ হলো ব্যাস সবই তো দেয় একটা
বেসিক্যালি থিং হচ্ছে ট্রায়াল এন্ড এরর, গিভ এভরিথিং যেটা কাজ
everything
করে
what
সেটা
are
রেখে
the
দাও।
what you feel it's improving, continue with that.
Yes.
কোনোটা ওভাবে নেই আনলেস অক্সিজেন আর ফ্লুইড ছাড়া দের ইজ নো
না এই তো
ডেফিনিট রোল।
প্রভাস যে বললো তুমি যদি বেশি অক্সিজেন দাও 100%
অক্সিজেন
অক্সিজেন দাও
কতটা অক্সিজেন তো তোমাকে মানে 90 তলে তো তুমি নামতে দেবে না ডেফিনেটলি না। হাইপক্সিয়ার এফেক্ট গুলো তো তখন
আরো
শুরু
বেশি
হবে।
হবে। ঠিক আছে 9:30 আজকে একদম পারফেক্ট।
বলো।
থ্যাংক ইউ জয়দীপ।
খুব ভালো জয়দীপ।
হ্যাঁ
You have raised the standard of academy in ICH. খুবই ভালো, বাট আমাদের আর একটু মানে দুটো দেখলাম আমি বিভিন্ন জায়গায় যেটা যে ওয়েস্টার্ন কান্ট্রিজে ধর যে ইন্টেনসিভ কেয়ার করে সে ওইগুলো আস্তে আস্তে জানবে, যে রেসপিরেটরি করে সে জানবে। আবার আমরা যখন বেসিক, আমি যখন একটা বই কিনেছি সেটা হচ্ছে যে মেড স্টাডি বলে, তো মেড স্টাডি বইটা আমি এদেরকেও আছে দিয়েছিলাম আমি, একদম বেসিক মানে ফর পেডিয়াট্রিশিয়ানস একদম বেসিক
স্টাডি মেড স্টাডি মেড স্টাডি পাবলিশার
ও এটা ইসে তোর ওই আমেরিকান। আমি বইয়ের কপিটা তোদেরকে দিয়ে দেবো।
লাইব্রেরিতে রাখুন স্যার।
পড়া যায় না
না ওটা
কাগজের বই চাই।
হার্ড কপির দাম অনেক, সফট কপি আছে।
হার্ড কপির কত দাম? 10,000 টাকা।
10-15 হাজার টাকা হবে আর কি।
সে লোক আছে দিয়ে দেবে।
লাইব্রেরিতে আনুন না স্যার একটা বেসিক জিনিস।
আগে সফট কপিটা পড়ে দেখ না, কারণ এটা তো এভরি ইয়ার চেঞ্জ হয়।
বেসিক্স আবার চেঞ্জ হয়ে যাবে নাকি? ল্যাপ্লাস থিওরেম?
না ওইটা তো বেসিক তো তুই দেখ দু রকমের, তুই যেটা why it happens that is different then what should I do,
that changes.
so as a clinician what shall I do, that is important, কারণ তুই তো সব মনে রাখতে পারবি না।
বলছি আমাকে 10 মিনিট পরে ফোন করুন, 10 মিনিট সেমিনারে আছি
তো সব মনে রাখতে পারবি না, তোকে বেসিক জিনিসটা মনে রাখতে হবে। what shall I do, what has happened and what shall I do। তাই তো তোকে তো আগে ডায়াগনোসিস করতে হবে।
হ্যাঁ
তারপরে তোকে কি করতে হবে
আপনি আছেন স্যার, তার জন্য তো আপনি আছেন।
না তারপরে কি করতে হবে,
না মানে কি করতে হবে সেটা চেঞ্জ হয়ে যায়, ঘন চেঞ্জ হয়। এই যে ব্রঙ্কিওলাইটিস এর কত চেঞ্জ হলো, কোথা থেকে কোথায়, এখন তো আবার সেই ব্যাক টু ওয়ান
একদম। বেসিক্যালি অক্সিজেনের কম হচ্ছে, অক্সিজেন দাও, কিন্তু ডোন্ট গিভ টু মাচ অফ অক্সিজেন।
হ্যাঁ আর ফ্লুইড ব্যালেন্স এসব গুলো ঠিক রাখো, সাপোর্টিভ। ঠিক আছে আমি আসি।
ভেরি গুড। আমাদের একাডেমিক অ্যাক্টিভিটিস তাই জানো, আমি একটা কথা বলছি যে আমাদের এই প্রেজেন্টেশনটা যদি ভালো হয় তাহলে মোর অ্যান্ড মোর পিপল ফ্রম ex-ICH or other than the ICH should be involved. তাতে আমার হসপিটালের নামটা হবে, হসপিটালের রেফারেলটা বাড়বে। রেফারেলটা বাড়লে আমার হসপিটালটা সবসময় ভালো চলবে। ঠিক কি রাইট তো বলতো?
রাইট
মানে তোকে বাইরের থেকে ডাক্তাররা আমাদেরকে রেফার করতে হবে।
ঠিক
জয়দীপ দা চ্যাটে দেখো কয়েকটা মতো আনসার কোশ্চেন আছে।
না প্লিজ রিপিট ডিফারেন্স বিটুইন thoracic and abdominal paradox। আচ্ছা কোশ্চেন আছে thoracic paradox আর abdominal paradox, এইটা কোশ্চেন। আর ইউনিক লেকচার এই হ্যান ত্যান এগুলো রিয়েল হার্ড ওয়ার্ক এসব, ওই কোশ্চেন একটাই। সহজ করে বলো, সব ছবি দেখাতে হবে না জয়দীপ, ওকে বল।
এটা বলছি ছবিটা লাগবে। হ্যাঁ সো শেয়ার করতে হবে। So just consider your normal respiration. When you take breath, then thorax comes out and abdomen also comes out. If any one fails to comes out, then it is called paradox. Simple. So here what happens? Your abdominal wall comes out in a primary 26 weeks and thoracic wall goes in. So this is the paradox. Next is your paradox are of two types. Earlier it was thoracic paradox, and here is diaphragmatic paradox. In diaphragmatic paradox, diaphragm is a inert membrane. It's realized diaphragm is a inert membrane. And when the baby breathes in, the intrathoracic pressure is negative, and this abdominal viscera will go up. Abdominal viscera pushes the diaphragm, and diaphragm will take this place. And anterior abdominal wall goes down due to atmospheric pressure plus movement of the viscera towards this point, this direction. So this is called abdominal paradox. So thorax goes up, abdomen goes down. Thorax goes up, abdomen goes down. So any confusion?
In which condition can we see this paradox?
I already told you, this is very rare. Isolated diaphragmatic palsy, there is some tumor or mass in C4 in your cervical spine, C4 C5. So then you will get a diaphragmatic palsy. Otherwise not. There are very less clinical entity or clinical condition described in the medical literature. The diaphragm will be paralyzed and intercostal muscle will be all right. Very less, apart from these lesions of C3, C4, C5.
ভালো হয়েছে, খুব ভালো হয়েছে।
তাহলে চলে যাই।
থ্যাংক ইউ জয়দীপ।